All right, peace and greetings, YouTubers. So welcome to another edition of In the News. Let's just jump right into it. Now first, I have to start off with Papa John's Pizza. Specifically, Papa John Schnatter. I think it's Schnatter. Like, you know, he has one of those funky last names with the really hard consonants all next to each other, like a C and H S combination or something like that. That's another thing. Y'all always talk about black people and the first names that we have. But some of them last names that some of y'all got, listen, I don't know the lineages that y'all come from, but all that Zebralowski and Ladowski and LaFerrera and Salviati and McWallerson made, like them last names that y'all got, listen, straight Dr. Seuss characters. Man. Anyway, but so John Schnatter, I hope I'm saying that right, he's gotten into a bunch of controversy because he was caught using the N-word on a conference call. Now, my first question was like, first of all, what kind of conference call are y'all even having that you gotta have the N-word come out? Like, I don't even see the context of where the N-word would fit in with the conversation about pizza. Okay, listen, unless you were on a conference call with the Klan and they were having like a 200-year celebration banquet and they needed y'all to cater, I don't see the origins of why you need to use the N-word. Okay, like I don't get it. And then the funny part is like his explanation was that he was pressured into saying it because that was the language being promoted on the call. I was like, maybe he was on the phone with the Klan. They really might be having like a 200-year banquet. You know, it does seem real clans like to have pizza to cater the banquet. I'm just saying. But anyway, yeah, I don't know what that's about. But listen, Papa John's, y'all need some better PR. Like, y'all need, listen, whoever freaking Dick Cheney's PR person was when he shot that person in the face, that's who John Schnatter needs. Like, remember, Dick Cheney shot somebody in the face while hunting for quail. And then in the end, the person who got shot in the face apologized to Dick Cheney. Okay? I don't know what kind of PR magic that was, but that's who Papa John's needs to hire. Like, because I don't know what they're doing, but y'all just keep messing yourselves up. You know, usually when you mess up, you clean yourself up and then you stay out of trouble for the rest of the time period. Like, it hasn't even been a year since Schnatter started talking all that trash the first time about the NFL players and the taking the knee and how it was affecting his business and this, that, and the third. And now you're using the N-word too? I don't know what to tell you. Some people they just mess up a good thing. When you got your money and stuff together and they still mess it up. Too bad. Because, you know, you really got to mess up for people to boycott you when you make pizza. Okay? Goodness. I just want to know what kind of conference call they were having. Because the conference calls that I'm usually on are some of the driest conference calls. Like, to be honest, most conference calls I'm on, the way I put that phone on mute and go back to, like, doing whatever else I'm doing, I might be cleaning my office or making tea or something or wiping my desk. And they just talking about, you know, bottom line and grants this and numbers this. And I done missed half of what they said. I don't know. Kind of reminds me, like, my coworker. Me and her clown so much. I remember she's like super serious at work. I'm a little bit more laid back. And I remember it was the week after her and like some other coworkers had clowned me because I remember Janet had canceled my concert, so I was all pissed off that day at work. So they had been cooking me all day. Later that week, she had a conference call, and when I tell you, I purposely put like the most ratchet song on my computer and played it super loud as soon as she got on the call. Like, that was the funniest thing because she like freaked out because she's on the call like, you know, and yes, we will have the numbers by something. Then all of a sudden you hear like Kaya or somebody like, my neck, my back, and she was like putting that phone on mute. That crap was so funny. I don't remember what song it was. It was something real terrible though. I purposely, it was a good way to get somebody back. But anyway, Papa John's, get it together. I don't know, something's in the water because everybody's tripping. Because then I saw the CVS clip too. And to be honest, I could honestly probably make a video every day about somebody who's going out of their way to call the police on black people for doing things that everyday people do. But I don't have that kind of time and patience, and I don't want my channel to just be centered on that. But I don't know if you've seen this clip, but it's a clip of a guy who calls the police on a woman at CVS for, I guess, allegedly using a coupon. So let's watch for a quick second.
It's a female. She's wearing a green.
Tell them I'll be here when they arrive. That I will be waiting for them to arrive.
A white.
You can tell them her name is Camilla Hudson. I have ID and will share it.
Hudson. And it's probably spelled C-A-M-I-L-L-A-H.
You got it. Exactly, like the river.
Morry, M-O-R-R-Y. Matson, M-A-T-S-O-N. African American.
Black. No, I'm not African American. I'm black. Black isn't a bad word.
All right, thank you.
Where do we begin? You know, first of all, here's the thing. They're in CVS. They're not at Neiman Marcus. They're not at Zales. They're not at some kind of store where everything in there is valued at $4,000 and $5,000. It's CVS, a nice little convenience store probably on the corner that sells a bunch of stuff that you need when you need something really quick, and everything in there retails for probably under $100. You know, the only things in there that might be a little bit more is some of the cosmetic stuff, because you know all the black hair products be overpriced. But, you know, the thing is, what are you possibly calling the police for? What could it possibly be? And then it was pretty much because she had a coupon or something that he didn't recognize, so he thought she was doing some kind of fraud thing. I was like, sir, a coupon for CVS? Really? Okay, that's what we're doing. I don't know if he thought he was going to be employee of the month or something. Like, no, if you want to be employee of the month, you got to go to Macy's and work the perfume section, because them people over there, they get it in. They work my nerves going to CVS or to Macy's, especially during the holiday season when you walk in there and it's like you just get attacked by all the perfume sales associates. Like, you got to be like a samurai ninja and just get out of there, because like, you got to move, because they, you know, would you like the Elizabeth Taylor? We have the Nicki Minaj something, maybe your girlfriend might. I'm like, back up. I'm good. God, I'm just trying to actually get in from this door to get to the other side out the door, because I parked on this side. I am not even shopping in here today. But like, he was really going hard about all this stuff. And it's kind of like, you know, I did some more research, and turns out he was a delegate for your current president. So I was like, okay, well, I already see where his bias comes from. So that answers that question. But then when you look at the clip, like, look at this again. Look, he's sitting there shaking, like, just like, I'm glad he didn't have a gun or anything behind the counter like some of the convenience stores do, like in metropolitan cities, because he probably would have shot her. Like, he really was low-key scared, like freaking out. I don't know exactly what was going on in his mind, but he literally was just having him a moment. Like, goodness, some people just are really losing it. I don't know what's in the water, but y'all losing it. Between all these clips of the people that keep calling the police on black people for all kind of random things, like the clip of the people harassing the black folks at the pool because they didn't think they had access to the pool or that they didn't live in the building, or just the clips of people going and harassing people for political shirts that they have on, political signs that they have in their yard, wearing a Puerto Rican flag, literally any and everything. I don't know what's in the water, but folks need to just mind their business, get themselves together. And as far as that CVS nonsense, I don't understand. Speaking of CVS, the one by me is the most... I'm trying to use a word here that is not stereotypical, but my goodness. All I'm going to say is the CVS is by my house. They just close when they feel like it. The other day, I was trying to go over there to get something last minute. It was 8:43. They were closed. I'm like, how are y'all closed? What kind of... Mind you, it's already not 24 hours, but I think it's supposed to close at 10. It was 8:43 p.m. on a Saturday. They closed. I said, you know what? Somebody just didn't feel like coming in today. It was like, I can just imagine, like, somebody was working, the next person didn't come to relieve their shift. They're like, you know what? I'm out. I'm not staying here. They went right home. CVS. Anyway, moving right along. So we'll have to check the water. There's something in the water, because everybody is losing their minds as far as calling the police on black folks or everything. Okay? You need to call the police for important things, okay? I know y'all seen Halle Berry's movie, The Call. Like, that's some stuff you call the police for, you know, kidnapping and stuff. Y'all calling about pizza and lemonade and barbecue grills and just all the dumb stuff, okay? What y'all doing? I'm gonna start calling the police. I'm telling you, I'm gonna really start calling the police about everything. I'm gonna start calling the police when people don't move out the way on the sidewalk. That's another thing. Like, call the police about that, because some of y'all are rude as hell. Y'all don't know how to move. Like, when you see somebody coming, if you're in the middle of the sidewalk and the other person's already on the side, maybe you should just shift over a bit so we can pass each other. But instead, some of y'all think y'all own the sidewalk. That's another video in itself. I'm gonna talk about the history of that and black people having to walk off the sidewalk when white people walk past. That's some history lesson stuff. I think some of that still carries into 2018 and people just do it unconsciously. I really swear that's it, because I'm sorry, some of y'all just refuse to move out the way on the sidewalk. Y'all will bump into somebody before you say excuse me. I don't understand. But anyway, I also got a chance to check out this Whitney Houston documentary, and I wasn't initially going to watch it because, to be honest, what I hate about when a lot of my favorite entertainers pass away is that their legacies always get tarnished by all the tabloid and all the junk. You know, all the tabloids, the junk. They did that with Prince. They did it with Michael. They've been doing it with Whitney. And the thing is, it's just like they're not here to defend themselves anymore. And so when they put out all kind of information that's really hard to, you know, verify or anything like that, it's just always in poor taste. But because I like to consider myself a music historian and I'm really, really into just music and everything, I've seen literally every documentary about Whitney Houston. So I said I needed to watch this one too, just to see if the documentaries all kind of align with the same kind of information. Because I've watched the Whitney Can I Be Me. I saw that one at Tribeca Film Festival. There's another one from a Dutch director that I watched. It's actually on YouTube. I forgot what it's called. And that one was okay. And then so I watched this one. And what I got from it is, one, y'all may not like what I have to say, but it seems that almost all of Whitney's family is very problematic to me. Just based on what I've seen from all of the different documentaries and what I've seen pieced together, it just seems like she has so many of the wrong people around her. And they kept constantly, and all of them, they continued to bash Robin. Robin Crawford, who was Whitney's friend. And, so the documentaries allege that they were lesbians and they were this, that, and the third. But to be honest, the thing about it, even if Whitney was a lesbian, it seems that Robin Crawford was the one level-headed, stable-minded person in her entourage. And Robin Crawford was kind of pushed out around like 99. And if you notice, if you follow Whitney's career, from 99 onwards is when all of the Whitneyisms started taking place. And when Whitney kind of really became, the target of tabloids and the press and a lot of the rumors and the crack and the drugs and the this and the that and the Bobby Brown jokes and all of that. It really started really kicking in after 99. And so for me, it seems that maybe Robin was not as terrible as her family put Robin out to be. Like her brother, or Whitney's brother Gary, just like dragged the mess out of Robin in the first 10 minutes. And the thing is, Robin hasn't said anything since she left. She made like one small statement after Whitney died, like a kind of, a very universal statement that really didn't say much. And that's it. But I would really like to know what's going on with Robin Crawford. Because I low-key feel bad for her, because it seems like she was the friend that was trying to get Whitney straight, keep Whitney in line, and they pushed her out. And it's just because, in the documentary, not to spoil anything, you might want to fast forward for like the next minute if you plan on watching it and don't want any spoilers. But it was like, the father had stolen money from her and then he sued her for $100 million. I'm like, yo, come on, John. And then, the brothers are the ones that kind of introduced her to some of the drugs and everything like that. And then it's too, and the thing is, another thing, Pat Houston is somebody I'm not very crazy over. Pat Houston married into the family. And she just seems like an opportunist to me, because ever since Bobby Christina died, I never looked at her the same way again, because the thing that got me with Pat Houston was Whitney had just died. And then Pat Houston had the whole family on a reality show like 2 months later, including Bobby Christina, who at the time was dealing with the death of her mother. And I'm just like, who does that? Okay, it reminds me of when Fantasia attempted suicide and then her record label had her on Good Morning America 3 days later promoting her album and talking about her suicide attempt. I was like, wait a minute. I'm not a psychologist or psychiatrist or a doctor or anything like that, but I don't think you can really get over attempting suicide in 3 days and be ready to perform and promote an album right after, unless this was a publicity stunt. Which I don't think it was, because that doesn't seem like something Fantasia would do. But my question was, who was in her corner that allowed her to go on stage and still promote and push an album when she literally just tried to off herself a few days earlier? You tried to, pretty much take some pills on a Monday, and by Thursday you on TV promoting your album. I don't get how that works. So whoever was on her team is terrible. That's what I think of when I think of Pat Houston. I don't trust her either. But that documentary just, I don't know. Whitney has my heart. That's all I'll say. Whitney has my heart. I think she dealt with a lot. I think she's really vilified for a lot of things that are pretty much everyday problems for some people. And there were some other things that they talk about in the documentary that happened to her as a child that are like really horrible. And I'm like, okay, it makes things make sense kind of. But, I left that documentary so pissed off. Like, I was in my feelings after watching that. But yeah, it's interesting. I would like to see what happened with Robin Crawford. Like, it seemed like that was her one friend that was actually there for her. And they kind of pushed Robin out and made Whitney kind of choose between, I guess, Bobby and Robin. And because another thing you got to remember, black sexuality, especially in the 80s and the 90s, was, because we'll be honest, there's a lot of homophobia in our community. It is what it is. It's something that we've just been conditioned to kind of, it's just how we've been conditioned, especially like if we grew up in like the black church, it's how it's just always been. And so, for Whitney Houston, if she was a lesbian, for that to have blown out or gone into the media in the 80s and the 90s, that probably would have killed her career at that time. It is what it is. Anyway, moving on. Let me talk about my neighborhood for a quick second. Can we do that? So if you live in DC, I don't know if you've heard about this, but there is an act that's out, and it is called the, Amplified Noise Amendment Act of 2018. And what it is this. DC is really popular for street performers and artists and entertainers and creatives who like to use the street to promote their sound, to put out and present what it is that they can do. And so if you've ever come to DC, if you go to places like Gallery Place, or you go to places like Adams Morgan, or you go to places like U Street, you'll see people who will plug up an amp and they'll be playing a piano and like singing a song. You might see a rock band playing a whole concert. You might see kids hitting like the buckets and the sticks. You might see dancers. You might see magicians. You see all kinds of things on the streets. But long story short, a lot of the new residents who have been moving into the city don't like all the noise. And so now they've pushed out this new act that they want to vote on and pretty much make it illegal for people to make all this noise in the city. And pretty much people can either go, I think, to jail for 7 days or face like a $300 fine, some nonsense like that. And my thing is this. If you're going to move into a city, you don't get the luxury to show up and try to change everything right off the bat when you haven't lived there long enough to experience the city. You know what I mean? Like, when you move into a city, you're supposed to assimilate into whatever culture is already there. You respect what's already been established. Just because you came from Iowa or wherever you came from does not mean the whole world has to stop because you're there now. And I think that's the issue that you're having in a lot of these metropolitan cities, is that people are moving into the city back from the suburbs, and they want to bring their suburban lifestyle into the city. And I'm like, that's the reason why you live in the suburbs. The city and the suburbs are different. And it's like, and another thing is when you talk about specifically DC and the areas where these performers are, like Gallery Place and U Street, these are areas pretty much where black people lived or other minority groups lived, especially like the Gallery Place used to be like Chinatown. That was the only section where some of them were even allowed to live at one period in time in this city. And so what's happening in a place like DC is the areas that were once predominantly black, where black culture thrived, and they're like even if you go down Georgia Ave in Florida, you know, there's always that building on the corner that plays the loud go-go music. You know, there have always been areas where black people were concentrated, and while we were concentrated, there was culture and there was all kind of heritage and traditions and things like that that pop up. Because the thing about it too, when you have oppressed groups of people, culture originates. You know, talent thrives. When people don't have anything, they look within themselves to make their life have purpose, and so they start to discover they have talents and all these different things. That's why when you always watch these documentaries or you read biographies about all these athletes and entertainers, a lot of times when you hear about their childhood, some of them had some of the worst childhoods, came from some of the worst backgrounds, some of them didn't have a pot to piss in, window to throw it out of. And then you look at how talented they were. It's because literally they had nothing to do but work on themselves, nothing to do but work on their talent, work on their craft. And so now you have people who are moving into areas that were once predominantly black. They've taken those areas over, and a little bit of black culture that's left, they want to snatch that away just so they can be comfortable. Why would you move to Gallery Place, Chinatown if you don't like noise? If you're not from DC, Gallery Place, Chinatown is pretty much like DC's own mini Times Square in New York. It's loud, there's lights, you know, there's the subway, there's the trains, there's the ambulance and the police cars every 5 seconds, there's random street performers, there's a lot going on. Why would you move to that area and then complain about the noise? You know, why would you move to U Street and complain about the noise? Why would you move to Adams Morgan and complain about the noise? You know, people want to have the whole aesthetic of being in the city, but then they don't want to have all of the city aesthetic. You know what I mean? That's nonsense. So with that, I hope that crap doesn't pass, but it just goes to show this is why you're seeing an increase in violence in a lot of metropolitan cities, especially in the areas where black people live. Because, and this is going to tie into my next bit with Chicago in a second anyway, but you know, when you gentrify a city and you keep taking away all of the cultural establishments and you take away everything that was already there and you recreate all this new stuff specifically for you and the new people who are moving in, but you don't include the people who were already there initially, and the investment is no longer there, and the resources are being pulled, and the people who now live there can't afford to live there because the property taxes are too high, the jobs are pretty much in a realm where they're not qualified to work in because they, you know, it requires all these different degrees, this, that, and the third, and all that other kind of stuff like that. What do you think starts to happen to the people who live there when they watch the entire world that they've known disappear right before their eyes, and now they're living and walking on the same blocks that they've lived on for 20 years, but they don't recognize anything, they don't recognize anybody, and they're not welcome? What do you think is supposed to happen? You think people are supposed to walk around holly jolly holding hands? No. And so you start to see the increase in crime and everything like that, and because you have that pocket of people fighting for even less resources now, then you start to have violence amongst themselves. So, you know, white people love to talk about black on black crime, which I've already done a video on that. And so I'm not even going to entertain that foolishness, because I already told you, when it comes to crime, there's no such thing as black people killing other black people because they're black, okay? Just like I wouldn't think there's white people killing white people because they're white. You know, it's all about proximity and who you have a relationship with, this, that, and the third. Just watch that video I did on black on black crime. But my point is this. If you're going to move into a metropolitan city, you adjust and you assimilate within what's in that city. Like, that's the best thing you can do if you're, like, because even me, I'm not from DC. I'm from Washington State. I moved here 12 years ago. But rather than me coming in here and acting like I'm better than everybody else in my area, I tried to assimilate into the neighborhood that was already here. I tried to get to know all my neighbors. You know, I work in the community. You know, I pretty much do any and everything I can within my powers to contribute to the area that I live in, rather than take away and try to, you know, disproportionately, you know, change and disenfranchise the people who are already there. You know, people just, I can't. Anyway, but going back to the next thing, what I want to talk about was, I don't know if you've seen this story, but there's a man named Harith Augustus who was recently shot and killed by police in Chicago. So from their explanation, they said he exhibited behaviors of somebody who was carrying a weapon, and all I know is somehow he got shot in the back 7 times. He was a barber. He had a little girl that he had a daughter that he always took with him everywhere, and now he's dead. And so there's been a lot of rioting and well, not really rioting. I don't even like that word either. There's been a lot of let's just say civil unrest. There's some pissed off people in Chicago, and I understand exactly why. And so my 2 cents with that, because I haven't even seen the full story, but I already know some nonsense associated with it. My thing is this. when I was reading the story, the part that kept getting on my nerves is so many people kept running in there to say, oh, I don't see you guys saying much about the black on black crime. I don't see you guys saying much about, black people killing each other or killing each other. And my thing with that is this. You don't see it because you're not paying attention to it. You don't see it because you're not focused on that. You just want to come in and argue when black people have something to fight about. Okay? In every metropolitan city that has an issue with violent crime within the black community, there are so many organizations and movements that have been fighting, that have been in place for decades, working to kind of change things. There's been so many community organizations and community centers and things like that, and churches and community leaders that work to try to bridge communities together. But then again, like I said with gentrification, when you keep going into communities and you destabilize things because you want to put in a yoga gym in the middle of what used to be a park, okay, all of a sudden that kind of changes the realm of everything. And the other thing about what you want to say as far as black people not being outraged enough when they kill each other. Listen, when a black person kills another black person, that black person is going to jail. That black person is going to sit in that cell forever. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. And another thing is this. When you're paying tax dollars for somebody to protect and serve and work and protect your community, but they're killing you instead, and then they get to walk away, without a charge or anything and get promoted, and then you get vilified for speaking out on it, they're not the same. That's not the same experience. And another thing is, with these police, a lot of these police who are policing these cities don't even live in the areas in which they police. So they don't even know the people in the community. They don't recognize who is who. All they know about the community is what somebody's already told them before they started. So when they come into these neighborhoods, they're already halfway scared anyway. There's a lot of people who are police who don't even want to be police, but it's the only job that's available to them because of the skill set that they have. And so there's a lot of people who don't even want to be police who end up going to neighborhoods where they're scared of everybody that they're policing. And so what do you think happens when people are afraid and they have guns? They just shoot. Okay, they just start shooting, because the thing about it is, people were trying to say, oh, well, he had a gun, this, that, and the third. And I'm like, okay, and how many times did y'all retweet that white girl on the college campus with the AK-47 talking about, nobody's gonna take my gun, America first, blah, 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 blah. I ain't seen nobody shoot her in the back 7 times. So my thing is, pretty much, there has to be an entire change, because people keep saying, oh, the policing system is broken. No, it's not. It's working exactly how they created it to work. And so it's more so you need to seam rip and up, pretty much upset how that system is currently working, because it's designed to do exactly what it's doing. And that's why you have so much unrest. And another thing, when people keep talking about Chicago, because for some reason Chicago is the talking point whenever people want to say something anti-black about black people and why we're not allowed to be outraged when somebody in our community is unjustifiably killed. People forget that Chicago is, the 3rd or 4th largest city in the entire country? Okay? And so when you hear about the 3 or 4 or 5 or 600 murder deaths a year, it sounds like a lot. But then when you get to some of these cities that are smaller cities and they have a higher murder rate per capita, like, we can talk about Camden, New Jersey, we can talk about North Richmond, California, we can talk about a bunch of other places, the issue is bigger than just Chicago. There's almost this thing where people want to put Chicago as if, there's just this desolate, untamed, feral place of just black violence. And really, it's not that. There's a trigger that's creating that violence in Chicago, just like it's doing in every metropolitan city where there's a population of black people. Okay? Y'all need to look into bigger things. You need to look at the origins of why things are the way they are. You need to look at why these cities are set up the way they are. You got to look at zoning. You got to look at gerrymandering. You got to look at the school system. You got to look at everything. But people just want to blame black people for what's happening to black people. Anyway, last thing I did want to talk about, I don't know if you've seen this, but there's gonna be a documentary coming out on Trayvon Martin. And to be honest, if you follow me from when that happened, I think you noticed that there may have been a change in how I started doing my videos. Like, long story short, before that George Zimmerman verdict, I used to still have hope that justice would always kind of prevail within this country. And after Zimmerman got off, that really just changed my entire outlook on everything. It really just, I don't know. Something about that case really just, it hit right here. And watching it unfold and just watching the evil that just saturated the so many people, the evil that just came out of so many people that were in, public positions, and just some of the hatred that people had, and the fact that nobody had any empathy for the family, and just how he was so vilified for being a teenager and defending himself. I have never looked at this country the same way again. Between that and Mike Brown, I was too done. So I'm anxious to see this documentary. I hope they do it in the way that I think they're gonna do it. Like, I don't want this to be some sugar-coated, let's kind of water down what really happened and present it to be, let's make it unbiased. No, we know exactly what happened, and we saw what happened, and we've seen what George Zimmerman has been doing since he got off for killing that little boy. So we shall see. Anyway, that's my 2 cents on everything. Actually, I'll probably do another video. I gotta tell you guys about Essence Festival. That'll probably be my next video. But anyway, I'm out. Subscribe.